people, look up. No more running from the bad guy. I'ma stare him in the eye like, what's up?
And welcome to another day of My Story, My Strength 365-day challenge. As you know, sometimes I come in a little late. That's life in, as my girl Coach Kiss likes to say. So I just thank you for your patience, your kindness, and your support, and coming and showing up for me every day. Being a part of this journey with me means so much, because I want to make sure that you understand that the purpose of this is to not share stories of hurt, but of overcoming, and for you to see how I had to get through to my healing journey so that you can understand that healing isn't easy and it is possible for me and you as well. So we're going to jump into the trigger warning. This episode contains explicit and emotionally distressing content, including themes of emotional betrayal, public humiliation, grief following the death of a child, psychological neglect, and emotional impact of familial and societal judgment. The content may be triggering for those with experiences related to emotional abuse, the loss of a child, partner betrayal, or being publicly shamed in front of a loved one. Please proceed with caution. Prioritize your emotional safety and use grounding tools or support resources if needed. So today I want to talk about another time that I felt like I was really humiliated in front, and this was in front of my daughter. The first time it was when they kind of blew me up on Facebook saying I look like a man, but this time was in person. It wasn't something that someone was doing behind my back. She did this in my face. This was a few months, maybe about 6-7 months after my son was lost, and we were still really vulnerable. My partner, who at the time was my boyfriend, we are married now, he didn't really know how to navigate his family's behavior. His, at the time, current wife, they were going through their divorce, but his ex's hurt and anger towards him, and how his daughter's jealousy of our relationship would impact us. He didn't really take any of that into consideration. He didn't go about letting everyone know about us in the right way. So there was a lot of shock and lack of understanding that we all had to deal with. I was surprised that his at the time wife, going through a divorce, behaved how she behaved when she found out that me and my kids were there. You know, they weren't going through a divorce at the time, which I didn't understand the situation. But when she found out I was there, it's like, oh no, we're not going to stay married. We're getting a divorce. Like, she behaved like a woman who was brokenhearted and betrayed. So I had a lot of questions. And to this day, he claims that they knew that they weren't together, that they were only staying married for the sake of their daughter. And he was just as surprised that I was that everyone reacted the way they did when they realized I was in town with him and they realized that we were moving to that area. So the fact that this had such a negative effect on everyone just made him pull away from me and my children instead of protecting us when we needed him the most. Of course, his daughter was not happy about us because she thought that her and her mom were like this lovey-dovey married couple. And she made a lot of negative statements about us when we would drop her off from our visits. Then one day when we were picking her up, it was me, my daughter, and my partner. We wanted to stay in the car because every time we pulled up, you know, a lot of times the grandmother, because the mother and the daughter were living with the grandmother, which is his ex-mother-in-law, and she never really cared much for him. This was before me. It had nothing to do with me. She just did not care for him for her reasons. Her reasons were valid too, so that's not my story to tell. Usually when we would come over there, she would have something negative to say. She loved me. Surprisingly, she loved me. She loved my daughter. She would always tell me that I needed to leave him, that he was no good. But I also felt uncomfortable because when her daughter, which was his wife at the time, would walk in the house, she used to get in here and speak to her. You stand in here and talk to her. She would make her look at me and talk to me. And she didn't want nothing to do with me. And I didn't want to force that on her. Apparently, in her eyes and in her daughter's eyes, we were the family that, you know, came in. That's what they would say. We were his new family or whatever. But they would tell him that. I'm sorry. I also felt uncomfortable when she would speak to me, you know. I didn't know what to say to this woman, but hello, you know. But her mother would always ask me questions about our relationship, how long we were together, when did we meet? You know, did I know he was married, which I didn't? Did I know that he had a daughter, which I did, but I didn't realize the extent of the situation. You know, did I know that he was supposed to come back. He was only moving to where we lived in Alaska to raise money to move his daughter and his at the time wife into another home because they were living with the mom for X amount of years. It was just a lot of things that was being said, and he denied these things. But on the day that we were talking about, that I'm talking about, she went on and on and on about the situation, about how he moved to Alaska to save up money to come back to move into a house with them. And he said, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I quit a good job to come back here, buy a house, and not have an income to pay my mortgage? He was trying to make sense of that. He denied ever having that conversation. And she went on to say, that everyone blamed me, that his daughter and everyone else blamed me for this not being the case. And saying, we all feel like you're a homewrecker, especially his daughter. My daughter's right here next to me, and I'm standing here like, oh my God, you're really gonna do this? I love you, but you came in and you ripped this home, and now she's lost her father, and she's lost her husband, and it was just like, I didn't have anything to do with this. This was not my fault. I didn't know, I didn't have time to entertain people blaming me for a marriage breaking up when I was trying to deal with my son being lost. I waited for him to defend me. He didn't say anything. And at the time, we had been living together for almost 2 years. We had been together for over 2 years. And it wasn't my fault that he hid that from everyone. I felt betrayed. I felt disrespected that he didn't say anything about her disrespecting me in front of my daughter. So me and my daughter, I told my daughter to leave, but then I ended up just walking out of the house like, okay, I don't need this, because I already had to deal with all of the stuff that was coming from his family, his daughter. Now I have to have it done in my face. It was too much. So the identifying my wound, that experience planted a seed of shame in me that I had no business carrying. I started to believe that my presence in someone else's story made me the villain. I blamed myself. I'm a homewrecker. Like my love was something to be hidden or ashamed of. I felt exposed, not just as a woman, but as a mother, because my daughter's right here. She's hearing all of this. My daughter saw me being disrespected, and I felt powerless to correct it because I didn't want to disrespect this man who was allowing me to be disrespected. I was worried about how he would look in front of his daughter if I just went off on this woman in her home. So I wasn't just hurt, I was humiliated, I was erased, and I was discarded in front of someone who looks up to me. And the worst part of that is I was convinced myself that I had to stay quiet to keep the peace. Because he asked me to. He did. Let me deal with this. Let me handle this. Like my pain was negotiable. Like I was a shadow in someone else's house, not a woman worthy of being defended because I didn't reckon he was home. According to him, they were already separated. They just agreed to stay married for the sake of their daughter and were going to get divorced when she turned 18, which I don't understand why people do that. But that's not my business to kind of, I know that mistakes are made, but I didn't break up a home. He lived in Alaska. She lived in Missouri. Their home was already broken. So I had to learn that throughout my journey. So my question to you, have you ever felt invisible in a relationship? Like your value could be ignored when it made someone else uncomfortable? What lies did you start telling yourself to survive that silence? Okay. So the negative mindset that I held was that I was the embarrassment. I was the problem, the unwanted extra in the story that I didn't write. I thought if I wasn't here, no one would be upset, and maybe I deserved to be left out. But the truth of that is I wasn't the shameful part. I was just surrounded by people too cowardly to speak the truth out loud. I had to reframe that being humiliated by others doesn't mean that means that I am humiliated. Being humiliated by others doesn't mean that I am I'm the one that should be embarrassed. It wasn't my fault that they felt this way. It wasn't my fault that they had this fear. They chose to humiliate me instead of get to know me and understand the situation for what it was, and even respect the fact that I lost my child. So an affirmation is I will never again apologize for taking up space. My worth is not dependent on someone else's comfort. I will walk with truth, and truth never needs permission. So again, I'll say that I will never again apologize for taking up space. My worth is not dependent on someone else's comfort. I walk with truth, and truth never needs permission. Love that. So our mini coping session, the coping tool that I'm going to be showing you guys is the mirror reversal technique, undoing false reflections. This is a trauma interrupting practice that challenges internalized shame by breaking the echo of someone else's judgment. So whatever someone else judged you for, that kind of tears that apart. So step one, visual interrupt. So this is a 30-second. This step is only 30 seconds. Close your eyes and picture the moment someone said something that made you feel small, invisible, or like an outsider. And lock that image. Then mentally take a huge red X and slash it across their face. Not as violence, like it's a red marker, just as a rejection of their judgment. Step two is the identity reclaim, and this is about a minute. Say out loud, that was their story, not my identity. That was their story, not my identity. Repeat that. And each time you repeat it, get louder and louder, and do this 3 times. And make sure it comes from your diaphragm, like get it out. That was their story, not my identity. The third step is physical reversal. Now physically turn your body in the opposite direction. Stand up and rotate your body. And as you do this, say something new about yourself. For example, I am not someone's secret. I'm someone's prize. Say 3 different truths out loud. Anchor them deep within, breathing after each one. This method uses visual me and these words, I swear I'm gonna get it one day, but not today. Visualization, movement, and declaration to unhook trauma loop, the trauma loop that feeds on emotional shame. So this is basically releasing yourself of that trauma. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You did nothing wrong. So we're our 1 minute empowerment challenge. Call out a lie that was told about you publicly, whether it was that you were crazy, in my case, a homewrecker, too sensitive, not good enough. Name it out loud in a post, a voice note, or I'm sorry, yeah, in a post, a voice note, or a creative expression. Then immediately follow it with the truth. Don't ask for validation. Claim your narrative. This is how we take the pen back when we're writing our own story. So now we're going to talk about a survivor that kind of spoke to me because her story is similar to mine. As a Miss Michelle Kinney. Michelle Kinney's life was shattered in no way a mother should ever have to endure. June 19th, 2018, her 17-year-old son, Antoine Rose II, a brilliant, compassionate honor roll student, was gunned down by a police officer while fleeing a car in East Pittsburgh. He was unarmed. He was running, and just like that, her whole world stopped. But Michelle, she didn't stop. She couldn't. In the wake of an unimaginable grief, she stood up, not just for Antoine, but for every Black mother who has buried a child too soon. She rejected the narrative that tried to criminalize her son and instead fought to reclaim his legacy. She challenged lawmakers, media headlines, and courtrooms. She didn't cry behind closed doors. She cried into the microphones. She cried at rallies and interviews in legislative chambers. Michelle joined other mothers of the movement, a sacred circle of Black women who turned personal grief into a public action. With raw honesty, she educated lawmakers on the urgent need for police accountability, trauma-informed training, and the injustice that actually protects. She mentored other grieving mothers. She stood at podiums and protest lines, never letting Antoine's name fade into statistics. She did all this while holding the grief of a mother whose child should still be alive. So to Miss Michelle Kinney, thank you for fighting when your soul was fractured, broken, shattered, and putting it back together. Thank you. Thank you for refusing to let injustice be the last word on your son's life. Thank you for reminding us that grief and power can walk hand in hand. You've turned your heartbreak into holy ground. We see you, we cry with you, we rise because of you, and we honor you. Thank you so much. So this isn't just a podcast or a challenge. It's a lifeline, a revolution, a mirror for every survivor who was ever made to feel invisible. Subscribe now to Empowered Voices, Finding Strength in Survivors for raw, daily healing challenges. Tune in every Friday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for Insights of a Survivor, which is my actual podcast where I speak the raw truth of healing and also have guests come on here and there to speak their truth and their healing. Catch my collab with on my collab show, Raw and Real with All Love, every last Saturday of the month, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. And join us every Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for now until, I believe, January, for the Kiss Corner, hosted by my beautiful sister, Coach Kiss. Just remember, when you ever start feeling like you're invisible, when you ever start doubting yourself, please know that your story does not end in pain. It begins in power. I'll see you all tomorrow for another powerful story of healing. I love you all. Stay strong.
Heard you looking for a hero. Well, look up. No more running from the bad guy. I'ma stare him in the eye like, what's up? I know the journey got hard for a minute, but I ain't giving this up. Yeah, I got the heart of a champion. If I get knocked down, I